we'll do the editing, so we don't have to worry about making this mistake, whatever.
What's this going to be used for? In a
In our research study of how what global economic crisis has done to the sex trade industry, we kind of did some article study. There are an increase throughout the history whenever there's an economic crisis. There's an increase on sex trade and especially also human trafficking. There'll be people, children sold over different countries, and and the rise in number is always related to the economic issue. So we want to find a person who I mean, like you've been a chaplain of prison. You could probably see it firsthand, and so we just want to see if there is a correlation in between.
Well, one of the things I would say to that, yeah, I'm in there speaking to many prisoners that are in there for sexual crime, but where I'm dealing with the male population mostly, I do deal with the female population too, but there isn't as much of the victims that I speak to, where the women would be victims of trafficking and prostitution. I would be speaking more to the abuser, the user of the sexual crimes, to some degree the pimps and stuff that come in. We do see some of that. Certainly domestic violence. Some husbands who force their wives into it. Their economy gets so bad, and they under normal circumstances would not even consider it, but would force their wives to go out and dance in a bar or become prostitutes, and then it tears down the total fabric of that relationship. And it's obviously sin driven, but economically driven too. But the person that would see it more clearly, I would think, would be my counterpart over at the women's jail, Sandra, and possibly maybe we should have you talk to her as well. But it doesn't take a lot of awareness for people to understand that sex related industry has been here since the beginning. Prostitution is mentioned throughout Scripture. It's been part of civilization since the early beginning to the origins. What came first, chicken or the egg kind of thing. But in that and that's either in good times or bad times. But one of the things I think about personally is that it's when, and we can look in history to different civilizations that failed, it's when there's an increase of sin and sexual perversion and all that, which is like we're seeing in our culture and globally right now. One of the aspects of that I never really was exposed to until the last 4 or 5 years. I started teaching a class of purpose-driven life to the homosexual community at our jail. And up until then, I really hadn't dealt with them very often. I had other chaplains that were assigned over in that area because they're in a specific area of the jail. And I really didn't speak to them very much or anything. But I was asked to teach a class over there, or to have a class be taught. And when I started approaching some of the chaplains, they were very homophobic, or whatever you want to call it. They didn't want to deal with them. And part of it was because they were out of fear, because you have to be very careful how you treat them, the political correctness, the rules of the department and everything else, and just the way our culture is. You can't judge them, you can't tell them it's sin, all those things. And some of those pastors and chaplains that come in there resent that because they feel that they're having to not tell the truth. So I understand that. But when I started to go out and try and recruit somebody to do that, I realized, how can I ask anybody else to do it if I'm unwilling to do it to myself? I had to be introspective and kind of realize that I was being that way too. You know, because I, without thinking about it, had kind of steered away from dealing with it, you know, and letting others, you know, go do the counseling over there or the services over there. So that's been about 4 or 5 years ago, I started teaching a class, Purpose-Driven Life. And it was, you know, we were going through the book, you know, Rick Warren's book, and we would discuss it. And we ended up getting some amazing discussions going. And I'd have a couple dozen, you know, men there, that, you know, the homosexuals were there, and very few of them would get angry or feel I was attacking them, but I was very honest with them on my positions and so forth. And it really became a kind of a highlight of my week, those days that I taught that class. I really started to enjoy it. Well, during that era, I became aware of, for the first time, maybe because I never thought of it before, there's a reasonably large sex trade in homosexual, you know, people too. You know, there's male prostitutes that are out there, you know, prostituting themselves. And I met a number of them. One that really had a heavy impact on me was a young Asian man, and I'm not quite sure where he was from, but he was he looked like a woman. He was a very pretty woman, you know, very
Feminine.
very feminine features, and I don't know if he'd had stuff done to him or whatever, but I mean, he was, you know, if he was on the street all fixed up with makeup and clothes, you wouldn't know that he was a man at all. And I remember him coming to my office a few times just before he got ready to get out. And he was part of our class, and he told me, he says, and I never spoke directly on those issues because it's a sensitive thing to do in there. But when they would ask questions, I would answer honestly, and they respected that about me. Where these other guys would do, you know, weren't so straightforward about it because they were afraid, and you know, in their defense, to saying that. Well, he came to me and he said, I realized that I wasn't born this way, that I chose to do this through the way I grew up, which totally belies what that whole community says. And then he went on further to say, I realize now the life I'm living is wrong. And I never taught that in there at all. All right, so something else taught him that, and I believe the Spirit taught him that. So then he says, but I don't know what to do. I have a man that really loves me, that wants to take care of me when I get, and he was getting ready to get out the next day or something. And he says, I have a man that wants to take care of me, and he loves me, and I don't know what to do because I know if I do that, it's wrong. But the only other choice I have is to go back and do what I've always done, and that's to be a prostitute on the streets. And that's how I made my living. That's how I survived out there. And if I don't have him take care of me, I got to go take care of myself that way. And I remember feeling so helpless because I didn't know what to tell him, you know, or what to. I couldn't say, well, here, let me give you this address and go over here and they'll help you, because I didn't know of anything, and I still don't know.
There's no resources.
Yeah, but it's made me more aware of just, because see, we live in our own environment, our own, you know, we can watch a movie, or we can watch the news, or we can read in the paper, or we can hear from it, or we can go to a class and intellectually study something. But that isn't the same as living that. you know. And when you start seeing it kind of through their eyes, the empathy or whatever you want to call it that you will use, and understanding, you know, how people come to that point in their lives, it's a different perspective. You know, it's hard to judge, even though I think that's the wrong choice. And he was saying that then. You know, I've never seen him back in again, so I don't know what happened. Maybe he's turned a new leaf. I don't really know. You know, and he was coming back in and out a lot. You know.
Maybe a good thing happened.
Yeah, I don't know, but certainly the sex industry, whether it's the pornography or the prostitution or the human trafficking, it's really all the same, you know, because so many of them are intertwined. You know, the person who's taken, you know, some of these other countries, it's legal, it's okay. And that's where a lot of them get imported from. So, you know, we think of it as being a terrible thing, which it is. But in the countries of origin, a lot of them, it's like a way of life that's acceptable. It's the caste systems and all that of these other countries that allow that, and in some places promote that. I remember when that tsunami happened over there, and was it Indonesia, was it? Remember when all that a bunch of pastors went over there, and some friends that I have, and it was about 10 of them, I think, as a team went over there to see what they could do to help, you know, because all that had happened. And one of those countries over there was Islamic, and they allowed them to open up a Christian orphanage for orphans of the tsunami. And they were able to bring the gospel into a totally Muslim area of the world. You know, it was pretty amazing. So there were some neat things that happened. But one of those countries over there, and I think it was right where the tsunami hit.
Indonesia.
Yeah, and it was Indonesia. There's a very big sex trade there. And all you remember the news where all those beachfront hotels were wiped out and everything? And you saw all the garbage being washed up there. They went over to help, and they were in that area where we saw those films at, and all the hotels were destroyed, or most of them. And the one that wasn't, they went to stay at. When they were at the check-in desk, they were trying to speak to a man who didn't speak very good English, and was trying to. They were trying to ask him, where is there a place that's still open where we can go get something to eat, a restaurant, or, you know? And they were trying to ask this to this guy, and he didn't understand what they were asking. He thought they were asking for sexual stuff. So he brought out these photo albums where it was almost like like advertisement stuff. Well, and there's like, you know, a whole smorgasbord of the different perversions. And these pastors, you know, when the guys started going, well, you want this, do you want that? They became sick to their stomach where they didn't even want to eat. You know, it was like that bad over there. So did God judge that area, and that's why that happened there? I don't know, but you know, it's all part of what humanity does to itself. You know, with sin. You know, so yeah. From an academic sense, you can say the economy and everything that happens because of the financial stuff, and it certainly plays its part in it, like we've been talking about. But how much more of it is just our sin nature, you know, the depravity that man has without God in their life.